Alistair Finch was an astronaut, far from home and surrounded by the endless cold dark of space. The stars outside his small window looked like tiny distant eyes watching him. Space was so very big, and he felt so very small within its vastness. He often thought about his ginger cat, Whiskers, and the warm comfort of his armchair back on Earth. Alistair meticulously checked the ship's control panel. All the lights were green and all the readings seemed normal, or so he believed in that quiet moment. But space, as it often does, had other stranger plans for Alistair. This day was not going to be a normal day at all. Suddenly, a peculiar shimmer appeared in the distance, a distortion in the fabric of stars. A strange, ethereal light began to pulse rhythmically ahead of his spacecraft. It was not the familiar glow of a star, nor the glint of another vessel. It was a colour Alistair had never seen before, a hue that seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. It sang a silent, cold song that resonated deep within his bones. The ship's usually calm alarms started to shriek, their urgent cries echoing in the small cabin. Alistair felt an inexplicable pull, a strange, insistent tugging sensation, as if an invisible hand was reaching for him. A profound drowsiness washed over him. Then an unimaginable pain began, a twisting, contorting sensation, as if his very atoms were being rearranged. His hands, those skilled hands that piloted starships, felt alien and wrong. His legs, strong and reliable, grew stiff and unyielding. He dared to look down at himself. He saw not legs, not feet encased in boots. He saw polished brown leather. He saw sturdy stitching. He had become a shoe, a single well-made brown brogue. His conscious mind, Alistair's mind, screamed silently from within its new, bizarre prison, a prison made entirely of leather and precisely tied laces. He was trapped. The shoe, the Alistair shoe, now floated alone in the cold vacuum. The sophisticated spaceship was gone, vanished as if it had never been. There was only him, the sentient footwear, and the distant swirling blue marble of Earth below. The planet seemed to call to him, a silent invitation across the void. A new, unsettling purpose began to thrum within his leathery form, a strange and undefined hunger. He felt himself begin to drift, then to fall. Down, down, faster and faster, he plummeted towards the unsuspecting world. He was coming, a harbinger of a change no one could predict. The Alistair shoe landed with a surprisingly soft thud. Not in a crater, not in a blaze of fire, but gently in a quiet city park. The grass was a vibrant green, dewy from the morning mist. Tall, ancient trees stood like silent sentinels, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. A man was jogging along a winding path. His name was Michael. He wore brightly coloured modern running trainers, their soles pounding rhythmically on the tarmac. His eyes, sharp and observant, caught sight of the odd shoe. It lay quite alone on the grass, looking strangely out of place. No other shoe was beside it, just one, solitary and still, as if waiting. Michael slowed his jog, his curiosity piqued by the lone piece of footwear. Michael came to a complete stop near the unusual shoe. He poked it cautiously with the toe of his own trainer. It felt unexpectedly warm to the touch, which was peculiar for a lost shoe abandoned in the cool morning air. He bent down, peering closer at its fine stitching and polished surface. The shoe, the Alistair shoe, seemed to hum faintly. It was a tiny, low, almost imperceptible sound like a distant engine. Michael, intrigued, reached out his hand. He intended just a brief touch, a simple investigation. What possible harm could come from touching an old shoe? He was a man driven by curiosity, Michael. Perhaps on this particular morning, he was far too curious for his own good. A sudden jolt coursed through him, like a powerful shock of static electricity, but much stronger, much deeper. Michael gasped, his breath catching in his throat. His fingers began to tingle uncontrollably. Then the strange sensation spread up his arm, into his shoulder, and throughout his entire body. He felt his limbs growing rigid, his skin tightening. He glanced down in horror at his feet. They were changing, twisting, transforming. They were becoming shoes. Dark grey, sensible walking shoes, just like the first one he had touched. He tried to scream, to call for help, but only a soft, leathery sigh escaped his lips. Now there were two of them, silent and still. The Alistair shoe felt a strange, new connection, a bond formed with the newly transformed Michael shoe. They lay side by side on the cool grass, a silent, unnerving understanding passing between their leathery forms. They sensed a need, a shared compulsion. They needed more shoes, more like them. Their silent mission had begun. In the distance, a dog walker, oblivious to the silent transformation that had just occurred, ambled down the path. Her gaze drifted, and her eyes eventually fell upon the pair of unusual shoes nestled in the grass. A curious smile touched her lips as she bent down for a closer look. The news of the strange affliction began as hushed whispers in online forums and concerned phone calls. Then it escalated, becoming screaming headlines on every news channel, on every front page. People were inexplicably turning into shoes. All over the world, the phenomenon spread with terrifying speed. One touch. That was all it took for a person to become an inanimate piece of footwear. From the bustling streets of London to the serene temples of Tokyo, from the towering skyscrapers of New York to the vibrant markets of Nairobi, a cold, insidious fear was a tangible thing, a chilling hand gripping the hearts of millions. No one understood why it was happening. No one felt safe anymore. The world held its collective breath, waiting. Panic, swift and irrational, drove people to the shoe stores. They bought shoes, all the shoes they could find. An idea took root. If I am already wearing shoes, perhaps many shoes, then I will be safe. Shoe shops were stripped bare within hours. Empty shelves stared back at desperate customers. Shoe factories, those that still had human workers, operated day and night, churning out footwear of every kind, but it was utterly useless. The shoe sickness, as the media had grimly dubbed it, did not care if you were wearing shoes. It did not care about brands or styles. It wanted you to eschew. The desire to consume was replaced by the horror of becoming. Cities that once teemed with life grew eerily quiet. Streets, once choked with traffic and pedestrians, were now littered with shoes. Pairs of boots stood where couples had been walking. Single trainers lay where children had played, all perfectly still, all utterly silent. Families wept for their loved ones, now reduced to silent leather or canvas or delicate suede. Governments faltered, then collapsed entirely under the strain. Armies were rendered useless. What could soldiers possibly shoot? A discarded sandal? A lonely loafer? The world was rapidly becoming a giant, silent and terrifying shoe rack. Humanity, it seemed, was on its very last legs, teetering on the brink of complete transformation. Amidst the chaos and despair, doctors worked tirelessly. Scientists toiled away too in hidden laboratories, often deep underground bunkers fortified against the unknown. They carefully studied the shoes, the transformed people, searching for clues. They meticulously analyzed their material, their strange residual warmth, their faint hum. They looked for a pattern, a weakness, a cure, a way back from this leathery abyss. Dr. Aris Thorne, a brilliant but often misunderstood virologist, was their reluctant leader. She was exhausted, her eyes heavy with sleepless nights, but she refused to give up. She had to find an answer, for everyone, for the future of mankind itself. Dr. Aris Thorne stared intently at the glowing microscope slides, her brow furrowed in concentration. For weeks, day and night, she and her team had searched for a breakthrough, sifting through endless data. Then finally, a tiny, almost imperceptible spark of understanding. A peculiar protein, highly unstable and unique to the transformed state of the shoe people. She theorized, she tested, she failed, and then she succeeded. She found a way to destabilize it further, to reverse its effects. A serum, an antidote. It was a fragile, flickering hope in a world consumed by darkness, but it was undeniably hope. With a grim smile, she called it the Resolver. A small, dark joke in exceedingly dark times. She carefully prepared the first precious dose. They needed to find the first shoe, the original source of the contagion, patient zero, or rather shoe zero, the Alistair shoe. Sophisticated satellites, those still operational, scanned the globe, tracking a strange, concentrated energy signature. It led them to an abandoned sports stadium on the outskirts of a deserted city. An old football ground, it stands now empty and decaying. Inside, a truly unbelievable sight greeted them. Thousands upon thousands of shoes, every type imaginable, all arranged in neat rows, all facing one central point on the field, the Alistair shoe. It pulsed with a faint, cold, otherworldly light. Waiting. It seemed to be waiting for something, or perhaps someone. Dr. Thorne and her small, brave team entered the stadium. They wore specially designed airtight biohazard suits, their faces obscured by reflective visors. They carried the Resolver in reinforced containers. The countless shoes on the field did not move, did not react. But the air within the stadium was heavy, charged with an almost palpable tension. The Alistair shoe, sensing their approach, began to pulse faster, its light growing brighter, more intense. It knew they were there. It was a silent, desperate battle of wills unfolding on the overgrown turf. The fate of all humanity rested on the contents of a tiny needle, on the courage of a few. The scientists held their breath, advancing slowly, cautiously. Dr. Thorne moved with surprising speed and precision. She saw an opening, a moment's chance. She lunged forward, her gloved hand steady. The needle of the injector met the polished leather of the Alistair shoe. A soft hiss, almost a sigh, escaped the shoe. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Alistair shoe began to glow with an intense, blinding light. A powerful wave of pure energy radiated outwards from it, sweeping across the stadium, across the city, across the entire world. Shoes everywhere shimmered, their forms blurring. They softened, they reshaped, they became people once more. Alistair Finch stood on the field, dazed, human again, the last vestiges of leather fading from his skin. The nightmare was over. The world slowly began to heal.